Hey, this is Drew Cagle from Drew Cagle and the Reputation, and you're listening to Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 451 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always. Got another great one for you right here with Drew Cagle joining the podcast for the first time. If you haven't heard that name, Drew Cagle and the Reputation, I think you probably will hear in the coming month. Well, you've heard it right now, but I think you probably will hear more of it. And maybe your friends who listen to rock music will hear that name more often, because I believe Drew Cagle is one of those rock artists who are on the rise. We're going to talk to Drew about his album, everything that's going on in the world of Drew Cagle and the Reputation, and all that here very shortly. But first, I need to let you know who sponsors this podcast. DEB Concerts, a promoter based in the Tulsa area that has brought tons of great acts to the downtown area over the past decade. Bands like Megadeth, Buck Cherry, Saxon, Lamb of God, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, Steelheart, Lita Ford, Kix, LA Guns. The list is huge and long, and DEB Concerts also books the DEB Concert stage at Rocklahoma every year. The Rocklahoma lineup was announced recently. You can check out the full lineup at rocklahoma.com. That includes headliners Slayer, Papa Roach, and Godsmack, with tons of great artists on the bill. But the DEB concert stage in particular features bands like Plush, Molly Hatchet, Slaughter. Hey, Mark Slaughter's been on this podcast a couple times in the past. She Hates Me Not, 7 Foot Monkey, a Van Halen tribute called Jump, an Ozzy tribute called Ozolution, and the almighty Ugly Kid Joe appearing at Rocklahoma for the first time on the 20th anniversary of Rocklahoma. So check out debconcerts.com to be kept up to date. And of course, we keep you up to date right here as well. And a huge thank you to DB Concerts for their continued support throughout the years. We've also got Sunset Tattoo, another long-running sponsor. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed, and they have well over 30 years of experience out there at this amazing shop in Midtown Tulsa. Jake and his crew, fantastic. You can check out all their work online. It's on the socials at Sunset Tattoo Tulsa. You can see all the work there, see what they specialize in, which is all different styles. They accept walk-ins, or you could call and schedule a time to get in there and talk about what work you're looking to have done. They're Native American owned, and they have a female artist on staff full-time. So give them a call and get in there and tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. All right, the subject at hand on this episode is Drew Cagle. Drew Cagle, the vocalist of Drew Cagle and the Reputation, has a great album out called Bad Attitude. This album came out last year. It's got 8 fantastic songs. One of the songs, the title track, features Tracy Guns, and this is a lot of these songs where it's like featuring a guitarist usually, or even a vocalist, whatever. You know, it's a small section. A lot of times in the featuring department, when it comes to the guitarist, it's generally the guitar solo. But in this song, I believe Tracy Guns is featured throughout. Drew kind of talks about his involvement with the song coming together and everything there. And speaking of Tracy Guns, he's been on this podcast 2 times. Actually, 1 time. I don't know why I just said 2. I said 2 because Phil Lewis of LA Guns has been on here twice, so that's kind of where the mix-up in my head got. But one time, several years ago, I believe it was probably 2021, maybe, Phil Lewis and Tracy Guns were on the podcast at the same time. Interviewed them in person when they were playing in downtown Tulsa at a concert that was booked by DEB Concerts. Look at that tie-in. It's all coming back around, right? But then another time, Phil Lewis was on the podcast as well. So check out those episodes. But in the meantime, you really need to check out this album, Bad Attitude, from Drew Cagle. It's got a great mix of hard rock, southern rock, melodic rock, classic rock, all these sounds forged together. I like to think of it, as that kind of that whiskey-drenched rock and roll. A good comparison to, LA Guns is a good comparison, but LA Guns kind of stayed in that melodic, sleazy lane, whereas Drew Cagle goes into that area, but also, like I said, kind of encapsulates all these other areas. I think Tesla is a good band to kind of compare to Drew Cagle in a way. I mean, Drew Cagle, I think, kind of goes in a more different directions as well, but Tesla has that kind of straight ahead rock and roll sound that's heavy edged, gives you that 70s classic rock vibe, that 80s big arena rock vibe, and that melodic rock sensibility with blues kind of drenched in there as well, all wrapped up together. And that's kind of something that I believe Drew Cagle is doing very well as well. Lots of great stuff here in this talk with Drew. I like that we kind of get into some talk about cover bands, because that's part of his origin story, is how he was kind of blackballed from his music scene because he refused to succumb to the cover band scene, which has always been an ongoing subject in any, kind of unsigned musician area. When you're in a local scene coming up, the fight and the balance between getting to be able to be out there and, present your original music to an audience as opposed to a venue booking a cover band just to try to, get people in, hearing the hits of the 80s or 90s or whatever it is. There's a place for that. But obviously music will never continue to grow and develop without venues supporting unsigned artists and artists that also are on the come up, like Drew Cagle. It's something that we've talked about many times throughout the years on this podcast. Back when Jason was here, I've had on artists in the past that have both things going on, their original music and they basically, would the word be moonlight? I don't know, in cover bands in their local scene, because it's a good way for an artist to make money. If you're going down that path of getting out there, spreading the word on your music and getting your music out to people who listen to that type of rock and roll, whatever it may be, why not? On the weekends, go out there and make some money and support yourself in the world of music, rather than having to get a different type of job that you might not be pleased with. I mean, I don't know why I'm kind of going down this tangent, but it's a balance, and that's something that me and Drew talk about here coming up. Like, kind of how do you get the audience invested if they're the type of people that just want to go out and hear Don't Stop Believing, or You Give Love a Bad Name 20 times a weekend? How do you get them invested into saying, hey, let's get excited about new rock and roll? Because, at one point, the Rolling Stones, Motley Crue, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, modern bands like Hellstorm and 3 Days Grace, all these bands didn't have hits when they first started out, obviously. They had to start somewhere, and now they're household names with massive hits spanning decades because someone gave them a chance. So that's what you got to do. I assume it, if you're listening to a podcast like this, you obviously are invested in music. So you're not the people we need to try to convince. It's your friends and your coworkers and your family members who say they love live music, but then don't support live music unless it's Taylor Swift. I mean, I know that's an extreme example because those tickets are extremely expensive, but, let me bring it back down into rock and roll world. AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica, all these bands that are filling up arenas and stadiums. These people will be happy to spend $150 to go sit in a stadium to see Guns N' Roses or Metallica, but they won't spend $7 to go to a club to hear an artist pour his soul out and try to get to a level to where he can present his music in arenas as well one day, or her. All right, another artist that we mentioned in this podcast coming up is Buck Cherry. Josh Todd of Buck Cherry has been on this podcast twice. Go check out those episodes. The most recent one was this past year. Always a fun guy to talk to. And that's kind of another band along the same lines as, what Drew Cagle does, where I talked about that whiskey drenched. You go into a dirty, sweaty club, seeing a band you'd never heard of, kind of have this envision in your head, smoke pouring out the doors and whiskey, beer flowing, dim lit. And you've got a band like Buck Cherry or LA Guns on stage. Drew Cagle fits right into that vibe as well. Before we jump into this, I just want to let you know that we've had a lot of recently great episodes. The most recent one, episode 450, was with Axel Rudy Pell. His 24th studio album. I mean, it's actually like his 40th, but his 24th of all original music is out actually later this Friday, March 20th. That album, Ghost Town, will be out. It's fantastic. Had on Mark Kendall at Great White recently for the third time. Came back for the first time in 9 years to talk about their appearance on American Idol. Some new music the Great White's working on, all kinds of great stuff. Robin McCauley of the McCauley Schenker Group was back on recently for the fifth time to talk about Black Swan's third album and a lot about Michael Schenker and other stuff throughout his career. We also had on Philip Schaus recently. He's the guitarist for Accept. He's also been in Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley's solo bands, so he talks about Ace Frehley, Accept, and his fantastic new solo album. All kinds of great stuff here recently. Tons of great reels you can check out on the socials. And more great episodes coming up very shortly. I've also got Dave Anthony of Tin Tone Mojo coming very soon. Holly and Fred of Dead Groove will be on here very soon. Joe Defiant, the guitarist for the punk band Defiant, will be on here very soon. We'll also have, get this, Jay DeMarcus of Rascal Flatts and Jason Sheff of Chicago, formerly of Chicago. That's something I never thought I'd say. A key member of Rascal Flatts and a key member of Chicago. Join me because they have a band called Generation Radio that fits the AOR arena rock kind of vibe. It kind of floats into that area that Chicago does, but it also gets a little more rockin' than Chicago does as well. But they joined me just recently for like a 30 to 40 minute interview talking about all kinds of stuff. It was a pretty interesting one. So I'll be looking forward to that one coming out as well. And have another couple other cool ones being scheduled to come out. Some anniversary episodes and all that great stuff coming here in the next month or two. So be on the lookout for all this stuff. But I'm going to shut up right now and let's jump into this. Here is Drew Cagle. You think you've heard everything? You guys just releasing this? Like, talk about why you feel this is the right song to be a new single to kind of reintroduce the album to everybody.
Yeah, well, so we released the album about a year ago now, and we're kind of going back to the 1 year anniversary, and I was looking through the tracks of the album, and we had already pushed All Figured Out and Bad Attitude and She Said, and it was one of those songs that I kind of think that the title of the track kind of speaks for itself. I felt like this record had just 8 songs that all had the potential to be singles. And so when we come into the next year, when we're talking about, hey, what can we do to get some buzz back on the album? And it was like, well, you think you heard everything. We got more songs to give you. So, and not only that, we had it's kind of like a reprise from All Figured Out, which is the first single on the record and the first single we pushed and the first song. And so it was kind of I honestly couldn't think of any other song that would be perfect to kind of remind you, hey, we're still here, we're still rocking out, we're still pulling no punches, and we still got something to prove.
I like the idea, of releasing a single like that, like you said, a year later, because the general idea, I think, would just be to drop a new unheard single. So it kind of made you decide to go this route. Was it kind of pushing the album for people that might not have heard it yet?
Well, we spent the end of last year touring with Buck Cherry. We did 3 months on the road with them.
Okay.
And we were pushing a different single at the time that did really well, but on that tour, we played "You Think You Heard Everything" every night of the tour, and that song, for some reason, just really every night connected with the fans and got the energy going in a way that I didn't really expect that it would. So it was one of those songs that kind of just came alive during the live show, and the fans grabbed onto, and as long as you keep your finger on the pulse of what the fans are digging into during the show, that's usually a pretty good tell on what songs deserve to have the light of day and what songs deserve to have a legitimate push behind it. So it was pretty much a combination of that and just like I said earlier, I think all the songs on the album are so strong, and I didn't want to move on so quickly. I wanted to make sure that every song um, had its fair shot to be pushed at the same level that the main singles did.
One of those singles was Bad Attitude, right? With I
Yes.
mean the title track with Tracy Guns. Did the idea to have him join in with you come when you were playing shows with LA Guns, or is that something that came to mind later?
So we played a couple shows with LA Guns before and after the release.
Oh, okay.
So when I was in the studio recording the record, I pretty much had the whole album finished except for the title track, which is ironic. And I had we kind of been stuck on it. We were struggling with it, and I had believed so much in the song, and I had kind of just doubled down and said, I know we're struggling with it, but I'm going to make it the title track of the album anyway. And it was just like we weren't really struggling, but it was at the point where we were like it was missing something very big. And we had went and I had to get out of the studio because I had a run of shows coming up, and we had some shows with LA Guns on that run, and we had opened the show with Bad Attitude every night, and at the end of the show or at the end of the run with LA Guns, Tracy came up and he was like, "Man, you guys are pretty good. I really enjoyed it." And he said, "I dug that song that you were playing earlier," and I ended up being like, well, it's crazy that you say that because we're kind of stuck on it in the studio, and would you be willing to just take a look at it and stuff? And he was like, yeah, man, send it over. And I mean, the second he got home in LA and I got back home in the Midwest, he took a listen to it, and within a couple days, he had sent me back this just masterful rock and roll, sleaze guitar track that just that really brought out the attitude in a song called Bad Attitude. And it was just awesome. And, I tell people now that, we were sitting there in the studio just banging our heads wondering what we were missing. And it turns out what we were missing was Tracy Guns.
Right. When you have someone like that is that accomplished and that good, do you give them any direction on anything? Or is it just kind of like, here's the track and he sent it back with his interpretation?
Yeah. So, the track was pretty much finished except for Tracy's guitar parts. So, it still had to have the same feel as the rest of the album. So it still had to fit in there. We needed something that was dangerous on the track. We needed something that was unpredictable and a little nasty. And that was pretty much what it was. Is I had put together the track to the point where the feeling and the message and all that stuff behind it was still there. It just needed that little extra flavor. And so I just sent it over to Tracy. I said, do whatever you want to do with this. Make it you. And when you listen to the track, it just sounds like he just plugged his guitar in and soloed over the whole thing and just sent it right back in one take. And I think that's what makes it so cool. And that's what makes it feel real. That's what makes it feel like it's dangerous and feel like it's got that grit to it, because it's that style that Tracy does best.
Yeah, it's a great pairing because your music has that heavy blues edge to it. Your voice has sleaziness to it like Phil Lewis's does. Obviously, Tracy Guns is like oozing with blues,
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just the right fit. We had done shows with them, and just the live shows we did when we were paired together were always so great, and the fans always really loved seeing us together. So it was like, honestly, looking back, it's just the most logical decision was to have some sort of collaboration like that, and it did so well, and now it's one of our fans' favorite tracks from both of us. So it was just such a cool thing for it to come together that way.
Yeah. On a side note with Tracy Guns, I feel like he's always been wildly underrated in the world of rock music, and I'm glad to see, like, over the past decade, a lot of people bringing him in like this on tracks, and not like he needs the exposure, but it's just kind of cool to see him getting the respect.
Absolutely, and you really get to see his personality shine on these features like this, where it's just it's about what can Tracy bring to the table. I mean, when you see featuring Tracy Guns on the song title or anything like that, you go, okay, so what is he going to do? And so that kind of brings your mind to like, you kind of get your hopes up. You're like, okay, yeah, I know Tracy. Well, I know he can rock. Is he going to rock the way he used to? And when it came to our track, I mean, I thought he went above and beyond some of the stuff I've heard him do in a long time. And it was just it was energetic, and it was so cool to see that it was like, man, people kind of, like you said, some of these rock stars, they kind of count them out, and they get really underrated sometimes. And you have to understand there's a reason they are where they are, and they are who they are. And it's because they're masters at bringing emotions out of their instrument. And Tracy is one of the absolute best. I hope when all is said and done, he goes down as one of the greatest guitar players of all time, because that's what he is to me.
Well, one of the songs on your album that jumped out to me was "Wine Talkin'." I really love this song. It's interesting to me though as an album closer. So kind of talk about the choice to put it at the end of the album.
Yeah, Wine Talking is a fun one. I mean, that one's my baby. So it's like,
okay,
I wrote that song in the middle of the night when I was in college, sitting alone in my apartment at about 3 a.m. And it was one of those that the song just came together in just a moment, and it got done. I didn't really know what I did, and then I kind of looked back over the lyrics, and I played the whole song to myself one more time, and I just kind of sat back and I was like, holy shit. I've always believed that song is the song that has the best chance to connect with the widest amount of people. So the thought process to leave it on the end of the album, there was a couple things that went into it. I was really strategic with that song, and still am. We're coming out with an album called Bad Attitude. Right. So a song, a beautiful song called Wine Talkin' probably can't be the opener. So we got to come out swinging. We have to kind of establish ourselves as, the rock band and stuff like that. And just, in the same scope of you think you heard everything. By the time you get to the end of the album, you think you've already heard it all. You think you've gotten everything that I have to give you. And then it's just, you hear that slide guitar come in, and it's just one last surprise. Yeah. And so that was kind of the thought process of putting that at the end, is I want a little bit of a shocker. And I also kind of wanted to hide it a bit. I mean, I didn't want the song to be at the front immediately. I wanted to be able to push these other songs like All Figured Out and Bad Attitude and She Said and You Think You Heard Everything. I wanted it to be the right time to give people Wine Talking, to give people the song. And I think we're getting close to it. I don't think I can't get into it too much, but like I said, I believe there's multiple songs on this record that could be singles and need to have their day in the sun. So Wine Talking is definitely one that's on the horizon for that.
Okay, we'll take that as a massive hint of what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great song to end the record, because it not only is it a hint for what's to come, on the promotional side and stuff like that, it's a hint of what's to come down the line for the future of Drew Cagle and the Reputation. What does the next album hold? I mean, these albums are the stories of albums should be the stories of the artist's life. Right. And my albums, my EPs into my albums have been so far, and I want to continue the story, and I want these albums to feel like they run together, because they're one person's life, and they're my message, and they're my legacy, and there's what I leave once I'm gone. So I want all these songs to kind of take you on a journey into the next thing. So I think not only is Wine Talking a great song to end the record, it's a great song to introduce what's to come.
So is the idea thinking like, a song like Bad Attitude, like we talked about, is kind of an in-your-face hard rock song, and then Wine Talking has more of a southern rock ballady, kind of, like you said, more mass appealing in a way? Is the idea to like move forward combining both those things
I
in a
mean,
more kind of even breadth, or are you still kind of leaning towards the bad attitude style as like the stamp of what Drew Cagle is in the live show, at least?
I think you get a bit of both.
Yeah.
It's so many people. The second they hear one thing from you, they just want to put you in a box,
Right.
and that's just not realistic for people. I mean, everyone has different emotions, and that's what music is. Every song is a different emotion, and it's just how we deliver the emotion to you. So it's like if you expect an artist to only have one emotion, that's just like expecting a person to only have one emotion, and no one wants to be around that person. Um, so there's a range of so many things, so many influences that I have, so many different things that I feel over the course of the 2 or 3 years that it takes for me to make an album and get it out to you. So I mean, uh, if you see one of our live shows, there's so many different things into it. It's not just balls to the wall, in your face, pull no punches, attitude rock. While that is absolutely present, and you will definitely feel that, we try to take you on a roller coaster ride of emotions and take you through the journey, just like I do on the record. And there should be different elements of people's personalities, of people's feelings, styles, and influences in all of that. So I don't want to ever say that we specifically do one certain thing, because it would be a shame to close my mind and close that door to what I could potentially create for fans, by doing something like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess that would be a good time to ask, like, because, like, what are your biggest influences? Because your music and your sound covers a lot of ground, kind of like you just spoke about. And if you told me it was Skinner or the Stones, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me it was Motley Crue or Whitesnake, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
Aerosmith, like, so, like,
yeah, you just named them.
okay.
So I mean, yeah, it's definitely all them. I mean, I've always been one of those guys that, you're a product of everything you hear and everything around you. And so I think when you're an artist, the biggest thing that you can do is just open your mind and try your best to be inspired by any and everything. And if you like something in the slightest, let it inspire you to an obsessive amount. And I think I've done that with a lot of things. I mean, like you said, I'm a massive fan of the Stones and Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses and AC/DC. But I'm also a huge fan of the songwriters like Jackson Browne and Tom Petty and Warren Zevon and David Bowie, and all the way up into modern day. I love some of the like, I love Avicii, which is an EDM artist, dance artist from the 2000s. I love just I love Garth Brooks. I love anytime someone puts their heart and their soul into a song, I immediately gravitate to that. So I think that as long as I can, it doesn't really, I can't pinpoint it on anybody. It's really any song that can move me. I really just let it influence me, and see what I can do to kind of mold all of my influences, into these songs and into these records.
Do you ever find yourself with like modern stuff, like just like a brand new band kind of giving you influence in a way like
Oh,
that from a song?
absolutely. I mean, the Glorious Sons is,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, one of the greatest rock. You talk about underrated. I mean, I don't think they have a bad song. Rival Sons is absolutely incredible. I mean, some of
Yeah.
the greatest live shows I've seen are them. The Struts are unbelievable. A lot of those bands like that. I love Max Saturn too. I try to stay as involved as I can. It gets harder as you kind of start touring more and have to kind of fall into your own bubble. But no, I try to stay on top of everything. I love them. I love the record company. All these, there's so many great bands out there. that still play real live music, and they aren't relying on tracks, and they aren't relying on anything besides the emotion that comes from them as human beings, and their talent and what they're willing to give to the fans. And as long as there's people out there like that, I think any genre is in good hands.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the record company, and that's a band that kind of I missed at the beginning, but the last few years I've really gotten into, and just amazed at how great this band is, and still kind of under the radar to most people.
Oh, they're incredible. Have you ever seen them live?
No.
Go see them live. Their live show is unbelievable. You would not expect it to be as incredible as it is compared to what you hear on the record is unbelievable, but like how they're able to show you those songs in a live setting is remarkable.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to one day getting to see them. Speaking on some of the classic artists you just mentioned, you've had the opportunity to work with Matt Coles, and he's worked with like the Eagles, Willie Nelson, Chicago, all those legendary musicians. Did you like get any stories from him or like talk to him about that kind of stuff when you were working with him?
Yeah, we probably spend more time in the studio talking about stories than we do recording.
Okay.
Matt Coles is the man. He's the best, and I can't say enough great things about him. I hope if I have it my way, I'll work with him for the rest of my life. He's so cool. I mean, he tells you stories about recording live albums with the Eagles. He tells you stories about just funny experiences from random artists that come in, and you don't even expect it. Like you go down there and you're like, you go down there to record, and we're having lunch or something, and I'm like, yeah, what are you working on today, man? And he's like, oh, Vince Gill's in the studio right now, and I'm like, and you're out here having lunch with me, and it's stuff like that. It's always really cool to be around him and what he brings to the table, and it's so cool to see how many people really value what he can bring to the table. Because when you have talent like that that's so recognizable, it's just you just want to be around it. And he's so great. There's plenty of stories, but I'll let those be his to tell one day.
When you look at Bad Attitude as a whole, like what did he bring to it that kind of set it off and made it the album that it is, in your opinion?
Oh man, I mean, I don't think I could have made the record without him. I brought in the songs and everything, but there's another element to the art and the magic of making a record that I think a lot of people don't realize, and especially when it comes to being a great producer. Because you can walk into the studio with all these different feelings and visions, but if you don't have the right guy to show you how you can actually bring those visions to life, then you're kind of just sitting there throwing paint at a canvas, and you can build it your way, but man, when you get someone who can really dig into your vision, I mean, and work to it together. I mean, we don't record a single note until we're both on the absolute same page on what we're trying to put across to the fans. And I think that's a really big deal, and a lot of people don't really focus on that. They walk in and they're like, this is the song, this is how we record it. It's like, you have to make sure every single person is on the absolute same page, and how are you going to get to that, the message, to the thing that you were trying to complete. And and Matt Coles, he hooked me up with a lot of the guys who helped play on the record. And I mean, we're talking heavy hitters. We have the drummer for Toto, Shannon Forrest, on the record, the bass player for Post Malone and Elton John, Craig Young, Sam Hunter, which worked with Willie Nelson, Saul Littlefield, who's works with Luke Combs and Jelly Roll and all those Nashville guys, and B. James. Just so many incredible people that were able to get on this record, and help be guided by Matt, and it was just an incredible collaborative experience that I'm just happy I'm still along for the ride, and hope we can keep it going.
Well, forgive my ignorance on this question, but like kind of based off of what you just said, and I've wondered is the Reputation like a solid band, or is it kind of like a collective when it comes to the live shows? Since you use studio musicians in the on the album,
Yeah,
or
so that's a believe it or not, that's one of the most commonly asked questions. So
okay,
it's a very big kind of misconception, which is my fault.
okay,
Kind of the story of the Reputation is when I first got started in Central Illinois, where I grew up. Um, I grew up in a town of about 200 or 300 people in the middle of a cornfield, and what happened is I had this dream to play music and write songs that would hopefully one day make people feel the same way that my favorite songs made me feel. And so what I did was I wrote some songs and I went out to try to go play them at bars and open mic nights and stuff around. And
just
this,
acoustically.
yeah,
Okay,
just acoustically or with my piano or any way I could. And and I built bands at different times too, but the whole music scene was just pretty much controlled by cover bands, and it was like the people that played in the cover bands owned the bars, and um, they were not kind to original expression or new ideas or people coming in to their turf, and it was um, they ended up kind of blacklisting me from this little town in the middle of Central Illinois,
wow,
and all in a lot of the surrounding areas. So and they were saying I was hard to work with, and they were saying all these other things, and none of them really ever gave me a fair shot to even see what I could do. And it was one of those things that I was so fed up with it, and it was a real defining moment in my life where I just kind of sat there and I was like, you know what? If everyone's going to say I'm so hard to work with, if I've got this terrible reputation, I'm going to put it up on the marquee. And when I put it up on the marquee, you can come to the show and see for yourself. There's going to be. I always say there's two different things. There's what your reputation is and who you actually are. And if you want to come, when you come see us, then both are going to be present at the show. When you come see me, whatever you've heard about me, come see if it's real, or come see if maybe you didn't quite understand what was going on. And so it kind of turned into that. And after I did that, everything really blew up. And I started going to the major cities in the surrounding areas. I started going to Indianapolis and St. Louis and Chicago, and they wanted to hear my music there. And so it was like, well, I'll go there first, and then I'll come back. And so it's really kind of cool to see where this journey has taken me, where the Reputation was never a band. It was more of a concept, along the lines of if just it was pretty much just kind of where the themes of Bad Attitude came from too. It's like it's this rebellious thing, and that's where rock and roll is rooted in. It's rooted in you think you got me all figured out. You think you heard everything. Well, I'll show you. And so it's stuff like that, and that bleed into the lyrics and bleed into the album, and really kind of give you a full picture of what it was like.
when you were doing that acoustically and or piano, at what point did you shift to being like a full-fledged rock band?
So I had played in rock bands before and stuff
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
We had done some live shows. I was just trying to play. If someone would give me a chance, I would do whatever they wanted. Whatever they wanted in the time. If they wanted just an acoustic act, if they wanted a piano, if they wanted an acoustic duo, if they wanted a full band, I did it. I was willing to do anything and deliver my songs in any possible setting that I could if I had a chance to move people with the music. And so it was pretty much that the time I started putting together a band was the time someone said, hey, we'll actually give you a shot. And here's a hour, 30-minute time slot at a local fair or festival. And, you come and deliver what you have to bring. And I was like, all right, well, then I'm going to put together a band. I'm going to really show you what I can do with these songs. Um, and that's kind of where it came from there. And over the years, I had built different lineups and different styles, and you know, went back to the acoustic stuff. I mean, we've done some awesome shows, acoustic. We opened up for Night Ranger acoustic to 1,000 people. And that was one of my favorite memories. Um, and then we just had some awesome rock shows and stuff like that too. So, I mean, I don't think there was ever a really definitive change one way or another, but because still to this day, I mean, I know we're the rock band these days, but I mean, I still love stripping down to my piano and playing the songs in a more emotional way, and playing acoustic shows, because you get to see different sides of the artist and different elements to the songs, and sometimes you get to see. Maybe you've heard a song 100 times, and then you hear it a different way when it's stripped back, and it means something totally different to you. And I think, we talk about the magic in music, and that's right where it's at.
These being your songs that you personally written, whenever you're putting the band together, like you said, there's been a few different lineups. How do you maintain, your sound and your vision? Is it always tough finding the right people?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a difficulty that I think any kind of solo artist kind of has, because you want all the guys to feel like they're a part of it, and stuff like that, and everyone's got different lives and stuff. I mean, I've been doing this about 10 years now, so it's a big commitment to last that long, but no, I mean, you got to find people that are on the same page, that want the same things. And, I always need to find people that want to move people, that care about the fans first, and care about the music first. Cause if you're caring about other things, and you're just trying to party or get laid or something, so that's just not how it works anymore. And it's like, if that's what you want to do, go do that, and play in bars and stuff like that. But I'm trying to really make a difference here. And I want people, when they hear my music, I want them to forget about the bullshit of life. Right. I don't want them to think about their divorce, or their job that they hate, or anything like that. I want them to just take a moment and be lost in it. And it's a struggle having to find the right guys who can do that. And I've been very fortunate over the years that I've been able to find so many great musicians that have worked with me, both in the studio and outside the studio, to help convey these songs, in the right landscape. And I just, there's nothing like a great live show that you get to play with your friends. So, with that being said, I can't wait to hit the road again. I'm bringing back some members from some of my older lineups, and I've got a new lineup put together now that I'm excited to see what we can do.
Speaking on what you said earlier about the cover band thing and kind of getting shunned, that's something I wanted to bring up, because, it's in your bio talking about that as well. And this is something I've seen a lot, here in Oklahoma. Now, I mean, not at the level of, like you said, kind of getting shunned completely, but, I've talked to tons of friends or musicians in the area that's like, hard to get a gig, even if you have a decent following, because you're not playing covers. Like,
Yeah.
how does this change? I don't know. That's too broad of a question, I know, but
It's a big one. It's a big one to tackle. Honestly, as crazy as it is, it has to change on multiple levels. It has to change with the fans.
yeah,
And it has to change with the promoters, and on an element, it also has to change with the artists. And it's crazy. It's crazy that we've gotten to this point, to be completely honest. I mean, we're at a point where people don't come out to shows to be moved by music anymore.
yeah,
And what is the point? They won't listen to new songs until they've been fed to them by the machine. And it's like, that's not how this works. I mean, the greatest moment in music, I've been saying this for years, and I think people forget this, because they get it so often. the greatest moment in music is when you get to hear your new favorite song for the first time.
Oh yeah.
That's the greatest feeling. That's the thing everyone is looking for. And so if you are not actively searching for that, you're robbing yourself of what could be a life-changing moment. And well, that's where it has to change with the fans. You want to go see a tribute for an artist that you've seen a bunch of times. Okay, there's a point for that. There's a time and place. If the artist can't do it anymore and the artist isn't touring anymore, yeah, go see the tributes, honor their music. But there's nothing to say you can't put a young up and coming original artist on that bill to open the show, to give those fans of Aerosmith or Van Halen or Guns N' Roses a chance to see a chance to see a new band that has that same feeling, to give a new feeling, a new favorite song to that audience. And that's on the promoters. And I've met so many great promoters over the years who I've gotten to see have started to do that, and that gives me hope. And it's across the board. I think everyone needs to make a conscious decision to understand that if everyone is only playing covers, then the genre dies, and that's nothing against anyone. That is just the fact of music. If you're only playing songs that have been written by somebody else a long time ago, then the music dies, and you have to bring new things to the table to keep things refreshed and inspiring and to inspire the next generation of a certain genre, not even just rock and roll. I mean, you want the landscape to be full of creativity, and I think the fans just need to kind of open their minds a little bit to that. And I just think everyone involved in the musical process of putting on a show should start making conscious decisions to be willing to give people original expression a fair shot again. And it's disheartening to see so many great songwriters and musicians have to go play in tribute bands and cover bands just because they don't get a fair shot, whether from the fans or from the promoters or from a certain aspect, and they can't make enough money to do so. I mean, there should be a shift. There needs to be a shift back to the prioritizing authentic original expression, because otherwise there's going to be no real music left.
Yeah, I don't know how it is in Illinois, but Oklahoma is covered with casinos. Casinos are a major culprit in this, and I never understood it, because casinos figure 90% of the people there are just there because it's a casino, not to see this cover band that's playing. So why not put in Drew Cagle or an original artist to play for an hour and a half above the bar, instead of the same cover band that's playing every other week.
Yeah, I mean, it's that it's the person who makes the decision first, and then once you see an impact start changing, people start to follow, and that's kind of that's what got us to where we are. I mean, but to be fair, when it comes to original artists, you have to listen, you have to have an open mind, you have to address it. Being willing to let their music into your heart. If you're going to a casino and you don't care who's up on that stage, and this person's up there trying to give you their heart and soul, and you're just kind of playing slots and caring more about the noise that the machine makes than them. I don't know how much value is in that for either.
That's a good point. Yeah,
for either side, But who's to say there isn't some person sitting at the bar in between machines that needs a song, that's going through something, and that one person could be moved by a song that this person wrote, at 3 a.m. in their apartment, right? So I mean, I think so many people get caught up in, everyone's going to sing "Don't Stop Believing." If
Yeah.
you play it, everyone's going to sing it. It's one of the greatest songs ever written.
Right.
But they can hear that anywhere. It's not the same as the person who might really need something new that day. And if there's one person in the audience at any venue, a casino, anywhere, that can be moved by one of these original songs, and it help them in some way, that's worth all of it. Especially if you're at a place where it's like a casino or a local fair or festival where your audience is built in. There's no excuse to not give at least original music a fair shot at some point during your event.
I see so many people say I love live music, and then they turn around, like you said, and say I want to hear, but I want to hear something I know. So it's like,
Yeah.
you think you got to find a way to reach the people that are the people that love to go see in bands and clubs that they don't know. Like as an artist, like what do you do to kind of reach those people?
Well, it's a bit of you got to compromise in some areas. One thing that I've found, when you find those people that I love live music, but I only want to hear something that I know. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is from the artist's perspective, it should be your point of view that if you see them, if there's someone that has that mindset in there that they're there, by the time they're leaving, you are that something that they know. And so there's an element of it that you have to, if you are there to change people's minds, which that's what the job is. If you are there to change people's minds, you better bring it. And so make no mistake, that part is on the artist. And because every artist in the history of ever has played to people who didn't want to hear their music.
Yeah.
And so the whole, the point of it is to change their mind and to give them something they haven't seen before. So if you're not doing that, then, spend some time and figure out how you can do that. And like I said, there's a bit of compromise that has to go into it as well. If people only want to hear songs they know, then play them a song they know. But don't play it the same way that band played it. Yeah. You can put your own artistic stamp on a song that a bunch of people have heard before, and still open up people's minds to it. Sometimes that's what you have to do to get people to open up their mind to the next couple songs that you're going to play. So this whole thing is very strategic. And if you're out there just playing music, then you're not doing it right, and I'm not going to listen to you complain. You have to really be strategic on how you're going to get your songs into these people's hearts, because they don't want it in their hearts. Especially, they've already heard everything, right?
Yeah.
And so your job is to make sure that you put that doubt in their mind that they haven't heard everything. And
you think you've heard everything, right?
Exactly. And that's where the songs come from. And if you really listen to the album, it's kind of a blueprint for all of these questions that you're asking. It is. It's a blueprint of this is what's wrong. This is how we fix it. And you can't live your life with a closed mind. You have to open it up. Yeah, and maybe that's just the wine talking.
Does playing a show like that excite you as much as say you're playing a sold out show in Chicago to a full house of Drew Cagle fans, as opposed to opening for someone where most people might not be familiar with you? Like I spoke to Tim Montana last year, and he said that he gets more excitement out of playing a festival or an opening slot where no one knows who he is, because then he has 30 minutes to win him over, like you just kind of said.
Well, I mean, I think I'm very guilty of getting that rush off of changing people's minds.
Yeah.
I love that. I love when I walk past someone and they're like, this dude's wearing his sunglasses inside, what a douche, right? And then I go up on stage and they run up to me afterwards. They're like, oh my gosh, that was so great. I love that, because that means that looks didn't deceive them. And, so I love that moment, but there's nothing better than playing the songs that have moved people to the people that came to see you because you moved them. I mean, that's what it's about. So I mean, there's a rush from both sides of it. But when it comes down to it, whether it's a sold out stadium or it's one person sitting there on the edge of their seat, waiting to hear what the next lyric I'm going to say in is a song, I'm happy to be there. I mean, like I said, I'm very fortunate that my music has been able to touch so many people's lives, but that's not at all what I didn't expect that. I just wanted it to help one person. And so if it's one person at a time, for the rest of my life, then I'm happy with that. As long as whenever I play a note, there's somebody in the audience that's sitting there, with an open mind and an open heart, ready to take it in or ready to sing along with me, then I'm happy where I am.
Well, speaking on live shows, like you mentioned earlier, you've got a lot coming up here in 2026. What all can we expect from Drew Cagle and the Reputation going forward this year?
Yeah, so like I said, we got something to prove, man. It's last year we were putting Rolling Stone as one of the top 10 bands to see in 2025.
Oh, nice.
Well, it's 2026 now, and we don't have that notch on our belt anymore, and we got something to show people that not only were we must see then, we've upped our game now, and I think that's a big deal. So I mean, I'm gonna try to go as many places as I can. We got a bunch of festivals coming up. We're playing Velocity Music Fest in Iowa with some absolutely incredible artists. I think Shinedown and Skinnerd are on our one night, and Carrie Underwood and Collective Soul is another night. And
is that the one at the Field of Dreams?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and Skillet and Creed, and so we're playing all 3 nights there at
oh wow.
Yeah, they put us in there. They're doing this kind of they're trying out this kind of pop-up bar that they're building on the field, and it's going to be one of those you never know what's going to happen, who's going to pop in kind of deals, and they're going to having us be kind of their house band for a little bit over the course of that festival. Cool. So I'm excited to be a part of that. It's going to be so cool, and then hey, we get to get paid to go see some of the greatest bands of all time. So
did you already skim through the lineup and see if there were anybody you knew on there, like personally, so you could say, hey, come join us?
I know a lot of the guys from Skinnerd. We played some shows with Peter Keys a while back. I don't know if anyone's going to come up and do any or I don't know if I can even say it either.
Okay. Gotcha.
But I'm at the very least excited to catch up with some old friends. So even if we don't do any shared stuff on stage, just to be able to see those guys and hang out and stuff. I mean, Peter Keys from Lynyrd Skynyrd, he's done so many cool things for us. I mean, he wore a T-shirt on stage when they did that big festival with Kid Rock. I think there was like 50,000 people there. Oh, wow. And he wore our small town rock star wannabe T-shirt on stage. So that was really cool of him. And guys like that, they don't have to do that. These are the people I'm talking about. When you go out of your way to give original music and the new generation a shot, that's what it's really about. That's what this music stuff's really about. I mean, you have to pay back what you've been paid forward, and I don't think everyone necessarily realizes that all the time. But I mean, like you said, we've got a great year ahead, and there's so many bands that have coming back to give us a shot, and we're going to be doing some shows in Illinois with Everclear, and we're going to be going up to doing back to New Hampshire for Laconia Bike Week, and a couple other things that I'm super excited about, but I can't keep talking because I'm going to give them away. I'm going to get in trouble. But yeah, no, we've got a really cool year planned, and I'm excited for what else is going to come into it, and it's going to be just another really fun one, and another great opportunity to meet new fans and see some old ones.
It's got to feel good to be able to, to have a sound like you guys do, to be able to play with a band like Everclear or someone like Skinnerd or someone like Buck Cherry. You're kind of you're fitting in different areas and still making sense, you know.
Yeah, man. I tell people that you can really put us in any box because I mean, when it comes down to it, we just play straightforward rock and roll. And I play songs from the heart. So it's like if just with really cool guitar solos. So if you can't, you know, if anyone's writing songs from their heart, which is the majority of major bands, then we should be able to connect. I mean, we've played with we played with Doyle from the Misfits,
Oh wow.
which is pretty crazy compared to our music, and we played with Kingfish, the Grammy Award winning
Oh yeah.
blues guitarist. We played with everybody in between. We played with Three Dog Night. Um, we would play with people across so many different generations and so many different styles of music, and that's the thing that keeps us all in common. If you write a song from your heart, that's what really matters, and it doesn't really matter. That stuff goes above and beyond genres, and honestly, more often than not, a great rock song can fit in with any band.
Were those good experiences with like Kingfish or Doyle, where it was kind of like Doyle's audience might be like, this isn't heavy enough, and Kingfish's audience might be like, this is too heavy?
Actually, some of those audiences like that, they honestly are some of the better ones that you get. Because, like I said, the whole point is to shock them and to change their mind and to give them something they're not used to. And with Doyle, they were not expecting us at all. But when it came out, and you go from so many songs that are kind of scream heavy and just a lot of notes being played at once to where you really open up the sound in our songs. Where they're very melodic. The crowd loved it. I mean, they were going crazy, and those punk and metal fans, they're awesome. So they always got a crazy amount of energy and stuff like that. So when they got some songs, it's like, our songs are written in a way where you can kind of, if you're paying attention, you can kind of sing the chorus by the last chorus. Yeah. So it was one of those things that they were so engaged and they were so into it, and you had some mosh pits and some of our just actually you think you heard everything ironically, that was a lot of fun and people really liked it. My favorite comment to ever get is when someone comes up and said, "Man, that was a fresh breath of air," and it's like, well, man, that's that I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. I mean, that's what it's about. It's why I do it. It's why I get up in the morning. So it's like, that was great. And with Kingfish, that was awesome too. Kingfish loved us. I mean, he came up afterwards. He's like, "Oh my gosh, we haven't got to play with some real rock and roll like that in a long time. We love playing with you guys and stuff like that." And I'm so blues influenced. I mean, I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time he was playing, and just soaking in as much of it as I can. So I mean, any chance I get to have to play with a blues artist, I'm over the moon happy to do so. It's just because what blues people are so underrated what blues artists are capable of doing.
Yeah.
Everyone has to implant all their own certain things and control so many elements when they write songs to move people. But blues artists, man, all you need is you just can lay down the same beat, and it's up against everybody else on that exact same rhythm on how you can move people with just your voice and what you play on your guitar. And it can be different every night, and it's about it. That's just the most straightforward what you're feeling, and how you convey it to the fans as it gets. And I think there's so much beauty in blues music for that reason.
Man, I'm loving Bad Attitude. Appreciate you coming on here. Hoping I get the chance to see you live this year as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk music.
There you go, Drew Cagle of Drew Cagle and the Reputation. A huge thank you to Jody Best of Best Bet Promotions for her ongoing, unwavering, and continuing support of this podcast throughout the years. I believe she's the longest running publicist that I still work with from the beginnings of this podcast. Could be Freeman or Adam Splitter, but I'm pretty sure that at least as far as booking an interview with, I feel like Jody Best was probably the first one. She's definitely been the most consistent over the course of 11 years of this podcast. Huge thank you to Jody, and a massive, massive thank you to Drew Cagle for taking some time up there to hit me up on Zoom to talk about his album Bad Attitude and all that other great info you heard there. I always love whenever these interviews kind of, feel like a conversation. I mean, that's what a podcast is supposed to be. Sometimes it's hard to make it that way. When you're talking to someone in an interview setting, they're used to the question answer aspect. But with podcast, it's meant to be more of a kind of a free-flowing thing. And, every once in a while you get a good thing like this. And I believe, our conversation there on the back half of that, talking about, the cover band scene and original music and getting fans invested in this way and that way and all that stuff. It's a great conversation that needs to be had. And, it's cool hearing from someone that is basically the living embodiment of, rock and roll, saying I'm not going to do what you think I should or want. I'm going to do what I want, which is my music, which is this Bad Attitude album. And here we are. Drew Cagle had some great music. Like I mentioned up front, Tracy Guns being on this album, and he's been on this podcast before. In fact, there's a few people that came up throughout this podcast or throughout this episode that have been on here before. Like I said, Tracy Guns was on here in the past along with Phil Lewis, and Phil Lewis was on another time by himself. Josh Todd of Buck Cherry has been on here twice in the past. We talked there, briefly about the record company because he mentioned them, and then I, kind of threw in there how much I liked him, and he talked about how great their live show was. Chris Voss was on this podcast about a year ago. This is one of my favorite episodes in the history of this podcast. It kind of goes into what I was just saying. A pure conversation. We talked about, the record company has a very stripped down sound, and, it's a rock band, but it weaves in blues and Americana and all this stuff into the sound. So it's not a typical hard rock band you would have on here, but we talked about thrash metal, about Guns N' Roses, about his music, about the Farm, about all kinds of stuff. So it was a very cool conversation that, if you're just a fan of listening to musicians talk, even if you're not familiar with their music, I highly implore you to check out that episode with Chris Voss of the record company. We also talked, briefly about Leonard Skinner. Ricky Medlock was on this podcast about a year ago. Maybe that was in 2024, actually. As well as Damon Johnson, who has been in Leonard Skinner now for a few years as the guy who took over the shoes that can't be filled of Gary Rossington. But if there's anybody to fill some shoes, it's Damon Johnson. One of my favorite musicians of all time. He's been on this podcast more than anybody. 6 times. Hoping to get him back soon. It's been a couple years, and he has new music. Well, he already has new music out from Brother Kane. 2 new songs are out. First new Brother Kane music in almost 30 years. 27 years, I think. Well, no, I say that. There was a new music a couple years ago. But first new album since the late 90s. Should be coming here very shortly. So really looking forward to get some new Brother Kane. That's another band that would fits in this whole vibe of what Drew Cagle is doing as well. Kind of looking, throughout the history of this podcast, if you want to check out some more stuff, 450 episodes previous to this that feature Biff Byford of Saxon, Glenn Hughes of Deep Purple and Black Country Communion and Dead Daisies has been on here 3 times. It's one of the biggest highlights of this entirety thing for me. Michael Monroe of Hanoi Rocks, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, well, I guess formerly of Twisted Sister, Jeff Tate, the original voice of Queensryche, Dizzy Reed of Guns N' Roses, Dave Elfson of formerly of Megadeth has been on here twice, James Lomenzo and Chris Broderick of Megadeth as well, Alex Skolnick of Testament, Frank Hannon of Tesla has been on here 4 times, Robin McCauley of Black Swan and Michael Schenker Group has been on here 5 times. Mark Kendall of Great White 3 times. Gene Simmons of Kiss has been on here in the past, as well as Bruce Kulick, formerly of Kiss. Dean Castronovo of Journey. That's another one of my favorites throughout the years. Another one of my favorites was Reed Mullen, rest in peace, the original drummer of Corrosion of Conformity. Mike Dean of Corrosion of Conformity as well. Kenny Hickey of Typo Negative. Couple former members of White Zombie, including Sean Yseult, Tommy Victor of Prong. The list, my friends, is massive and the list is long. It also includes members of Seven Dust, Breaking Benjamin, Hellstorm, Saliva, Three Doors Down, Motley Crue, Whitesnake, Firehouse. The list is massive. TheThunderUnderground.com. You can listen to everything there. You can listen pretty much anywhere podcasts are heard. So wherever you're listening right now, hit like, follow, subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Future episodes include Dave Anthony, the vocalist of 10 Ton Mojo, Holly West, the bassist and vocalist of Dead Groove. That same episode will also feature the drummer of Dead Groove, Fred Aching, who is also the drummer of Powerflow, and Kings of Thrash, which features David Elfson, former member of this podcast. Powerflow features Billy from Biohazard, who has also been on this podcast in the past. Also, got an upcoming episode with Jay DeMarcus and Jason Sheff. Members of Rascal Flatts in Chicago have a band called Generation Radio. We're going to talk all about that. Joe Defiant, the guitarist of the band Defiant as well. Got some other things that are recorded as well. So hit up those socials, follow, like, subscribe. When you see any post on any social, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all those things, if you like it, comment on it, share it. These are simple, free ways for you to help support this podcast. On all the socials, there's daily reels. There's usually more than one a day that aren't related to these podcast episodes. There are reels related directly to these episodes, like there should be a Drew Cagle reel at some point here very shortly. But daily reels include historical milestones, moments in history, brand new news, all kinds of stuff. So give me a follow on all those things. If you want any merch, t-shirts, shot glasses, all that shit, I'm just rambling and shilling this stuff way too damn much. Again, a massive thank you to DEB Concerts, Sunset Tattoo, Best Bet Promotions, and Drew Cagle. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.